Meanwhile, the race for Iowa governor is putting new attention on whether state lawmakers should face term limits. KTIV Iowa State Capitol Bureau reporter Isabella Warren has been following the story. She joins us tonight and explains.
There is this feeling among lots of people that regardless of what issues you care about the most, and even regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, that things aren't working well.
That frustration has helped fuel calls for term limits in Iowa. Right now, the state does not limit how long state lawmakers can serve, but Democratic gubernatorial candidate Rob Sand wants to change that. In April, he proposed a 12-year term limit for state legislators.
Let's put in term limits. I think term limits are a wonderful thing because what I'm proposing is you can have enough time in there to really understand and get good at solving problems, but not so much time in there that you forgot why you came in the first place.
Republican gubernatorial candidate Zach Lane has not released a term limits proposal. In a May interview with the Des Moines Register, Lane said he supports term limits for, quote, many things, but not for governor. He said term limits alone don't solve every problem and that it will take a long time to solve some of Iowa's issues. His campaign did not respond to a request for comment on whether he supports limits for state lawmakers.
Term limits are a really important way to keep a check on elected office.
State Representative Jennifer Comfort, who is retiring from the legislature in January and supports Sand, says many voters are looking for new leadership.
We've had governors who have been in office for so long. We've had Senator Grassley who's been there a long time. I think Iowans are ready for fresh faces and for someone who's not there for power and longevity, but is there to make Iowa better.
But even if a governor pushes for term limits, getting them approved is the biggest hurdle.
They are coming in states that have some sort of ballot initiative or referendum process where voters themselves can propose policies. And that's one way you get these sort of checks often on elected officials, because right, if you think about this as a policy, it requires legislators to be willing to fire themselves.
16 states in the country currently have term limits for their state lawmakers. If elected, Sand would be working with a Republican-controlled legislature, which could make it difficult to pass term limit legislation. In Des Moines, I'm Isabella Warren.